What is going on, everybody? Welcome to our next 2025 NFL Draft video. I have been grinding the tape. I got through 6 full games of film for Shedeur Sanders, along with watching all of his third down dropbacks this season. So I am ready to bring to you today his full prospect profile video, just like I did with Cam Ward a few weeks ago. I do want to say before we get started, without giving away my final grade or having some big hot take about Shedeur, I was just a little bit underwhelmed by what I saw on film relative to his expectations right now as someone that we're seeing go at the top of all of our mock drafts right now. So I will start with that, and throughout the video, obviously, I will talk about why I say that. So before we do get started, if you could please hit that like button. I really do appreciate it. It's a free and easy way to support my channel. It really helps me out. Thank you. Let's go ahead and get into it. Just like we did with Cam Ward, I'm going to break this down trait by trait based on how I evaluate quarterbacks. I do want to remind you, all of the descriptions for these different attributes are in the description below if you want to learn a little bit more about what I'm looking for with each of these traits. But before diving into all of the individual traits, just a little bit of a primer on Shedeur Sanders. Obviously, Deion's son, going to be a lot of hype surrounding that and just the Colorado program in general. He's in his 4th year in college, his 2nd at Colorado. Started at Jackson State with his dad, and then transferred last season to Colorado, and is one of these guys that I would say did show year by year incremental growths in his game, something you're looking for in a prospect, that he can kind of address his strengths and weaknesses and get better over the years. He saw increases in his big-time throw percentage per PFF every single season, other than from his freshman year to his sophomore year at Jackson State. You could argue some of his efficiency from year 1 to year 2 went down, but then you're obviously going to see a downtick in overall production at Colorado, but I do think we saw a better quarterback in year 3, and then his best season, year 4 at Colorado, career highs in yards per attempt, completion percentage, adjusted completion percentage, big-time throw percentage per PFF, turnover-worthy play percentage per PFF. So he does have that sort of work ethic background, the ability to get better that you're looking for in really any sort of quarterback, and obviously has some nice NFL bloodlines to back it up. I know there are some discussions about him kind of blaming his offensive line. Is he a guy that's, the kind of face your franchise type? I don't have enough information about that. I don't think too much about that whole situation. To me, he does seem like his intentions are in the right place, and he's mature enough for a 22-year-old that I'm certainly not worried about it. But that is certainly a narrative to be aware of that people are going to bring up with him. But let's dive into what I saw on the film with Shedeur, and I'm going to start with his arm strength. And this is the first of a few areas that we're going to talk about today where I was just a little underwhelmed with Shedeur. I just was. I think he's got a fine arm. I give him a B grade for arm strength. I think he will have an NFL average arm. He doesn't have a noodle, or, it's not a non-starter for him or anything like that. But he can make NFL throws, but I don't think all of the throws are going to be available to him and within the playbook that they ask of Shedeur to run. And as far as arm strength compared to NFL starters, I do think he'll be in the bottom quartile, the bottom 8 of NFL starters in terms of raw arm strength. So again, you're just not going to have all of the throws available to Shedeur. He can rip it over the middle of the field. He can hit a deep out, not always, but you can ask him to throw a 20-yard out and he can hit it. He can get the ball downfield to his receivers to make plays vertically. But if he's got a guy streaking down the sideline, does he have the ability to just hit his back foot and rip it down the sideline into a hole and hit him in stride? No, he's got to kind of lay it out there, make the catch a little bit harder on his receiver, limit run after catch opportunities. If he sees a tight window deeper into the middle of the field or towards the sideline, he does have just less room for error in terms of ripping it in between the hands of zone defenders to get their hands on the football. And I think you see this relative lack of arm strength reflected in some of his decision-making, even compared to like a Cam Ward, who I don't think has a rocket arm by any stretch of the imagination. But it does remind me a lot of like a Brock Purdy, for example. Sometimes maybe Jalen Hurts, Tua Tagovailoa, some of the starters in the league that just don't have the strongest arms. defenses will kind of test you when you have a weaker arm. And if you're, if the ball's on a far hash, defenses might kind of creep a little bit down a little bit from the field side and play a little bit looser towards the far sideline. And there are certainly times where some quarterbacks with great arms might recognize cover two or that zone defender was cheating a little bit and really fire the ball towards the sideline. And Shedeur kind of ignores those types of throws for the vast majority of his dropbacks. So again, I do think there are some limitations with his arm if you're comparing him to the starting quarterbacks in the league and really just other potential top 3, top 5 draft picks. And whoever drafts him is going to have to be comfortable with that. But on a more positive note, let's move on and talk about Shedeur's accuracy. And I do think, relatively speaking, this is the most redeeming quality of Shedeur as a potential first-round quarterback prospect. He really does, for the most part, throw with exceptional ball placement, and he throws with great touch that makes his footballs very catchable for these wide receivers down the field. And I do think he has a very strong understanding of the leverage of defenders. You will consistently see him kind of throw to an outside shoulder away from a defender, and just his overall placement to make balls more catchable and to set up rack opportunities. When he's on, he really gets it and can throw extremely accurately. Now, it's not perfect, as we'll see here with the grades, a B+ for quick accuracy, and then kind of dinging him down a little bit as you get further down the field, a B in intermediate accuracy and a B- for those advanced accuracy throws, your deep posts, your deep go balls. Even if he generally throws with exceptional ball placement and has a vast highlight reel of dimes throughout his career, you do see the ball get away from him at times. He's not perfect when it comes to consistency with his accuracy. I always say, at least for me, accuracy is not the ability to throw dimes. It is the ability to consistently throw dimes. And there are just throws, whether it's a deep dig where it's left on a guy's hip pocket where he has to kind of slow down and turn around for the catch, or a lot of these throws towards the sideline where he is kind of just sailing it and floating it out of bounds more often than you would like to see. That's where you see the intermediate accuracy come down a little bit. And certainly the advanced accuracy, I don't think he has really the command of the football as we're talking about those sort of 35, 40-yard types of throws. He just doesn't have a lot of those throws in his bag in general, so there's not a ton of them on film. But usually when he's pushing the ball deep down the field, he's kind of just giving it all he has and laying it up there for a guy like Travis Hunter to go make a play. And you do see, okay, if he's throwing a deep post, it's probably going to be a little bit underthrown. The receiver's going to have to work back to the ball a little bit. If he's throwing it deep and outside the numbers, you're not really going to see him pin it on a guy and have him in stride like you'd ideally like to see with a high-end quarterback. He's going to leave it out there. He throws generally catchable balls, though he does, let balls float out of bounds a little bit more than you'd like to see as well. But he's going to lay it out there, give a guy a chance to catch the ball, but he's making it a contested catch opportunity instead of an open catch, and you're definitely going to limit those rack opportunities. So that's where you see the B- for the advanced accuracy come in. He can get it there. It's fine, but it's certainly not a real strength. But if you're talking about those quick throws, making sure you're hitting a slant in stride, or if a guy's sitting down in his zone and he's kind of, again, putting it away from a zone defender to make it a more catchable ball, he really gets it and is an accurate kind of field general in that sense. And I'll close there by saying, again, I think overall general accuracy is going to be the biggest strength of Shedeur, most likely. There is, I suppose, one more aspect of accuracy that we do need to talk about with Shedeur there, and it's another big strength of his, and that is his off-platform accuracy, where I give him a B+ grade there. Now, again, it's not an A because there are just certain throws that are unavailable to him, and sometimes it kind of pairs with his arm strength. Like, he will attempt throws that he just can't cash that are going to end up inaccurate throws while he's off-platform, whether that's in the pocket or on the run. But generally speaking, this is another area where he really understands how to kind of torque his hips, has really good touch, and understands where to put the ball when he's on the move. And frankly, some of his best overall throws from the entire season are when he's throwing on the run. I am really impressed by his ball placement on the move, which pairs exactly with what I said. I think his overall ability to put the ball where it needs to go is extremely impressive. And then I'll hit on his release mechanics just really quick because this is something I grade for these guys. He's got a very quick, mechanically sound release. I have no complaints about it. This isn't like the elite of the elite releases that we've seen at times coming out. Some guys that come to mind like Anthony Richardson, Will Levis. Even compared to like Cam Ward in this draft, you'll see Ward also got an A- release. Ward was a little bit unique because Ward really does have that kind of elite A release, but Ward's different because he changes his arm slot when he's throwing deep, and he actually really winds it up when he throws the ball deep. That's Cam Ward. So I gave him a little bit of a ding for release because when he pushes the ball downfield, it's not the same release. Shedeur, it's consistent mechanics. It's always just a nice, fluid, quick release. So that'll play, obviously, at the next level. If you already miss fantasy football and you're looking for a way to maximize your interest in all of these playoff games, Underdog Fantasy has got you covered. Not only can you play their pick'em contest for all of these playoff matchups with the chance at massive payouts if you select the right player stats, but you can also hop in and do one of my personal favorites, Playoff Best Ball. You can scratch that itch to do a fantasy draft right now, compete for a chance at massive payouts, and not just put your individual player knowledge to the test, but you've also got to pick the best players on the best teams that are going to go the furthest in the playoffs. It is a really unique format. It's one of my favorite ways to play fantasy football, and Underdog is the best place to play it. We've only got 4 more weeks of football left, so make sure you are enjoying the absolute most out of it with Underdog. And right now, if you sign up using code TFG, not only will you support my channel in the process, they will give you a bonus match up to $1,000. That is plenty of extra money to carry into NBA, NHL, MLB, and into off-season best ball, next year's pick'em contest, whatever it is you're looking to do at Underdog, you can get that bonus match and more room to play. So that's code TFG at Underdog, and let's keep going. Next up, let's move on to more of the mental side of things with Shedeur and talk about his processing. And just to give a little bit more background here between standard processing versus advanced processing, those are the 2 different ways I break up processing and how the quarterback sees the field. So standard processing, really just think first read. Do you consistently play on time? Do you get the ball where it needs to go within structure? Do you do that while avoiding mistakes and while avoiding holding onto the ball too long? Advanced processing is more next level. Can you do full field progressions? Do you consistently make second and third reads on plays? Beyond that, can you pick up like more advanced coverages when they make things confusing on you? Can you recognize rotating, disguised coverages, that kind of stuff? And beyond that, a big part of advanced processing for me is anticipation. Can you throw the ball before the receiver is open, or do you more need to see the receiver come open before you throw the ball? So those are the 2 kind of splits there. And not to keep bringing Cam Ward into the equation here, but because they are stacked against each other in this class, and we just did a video on Cam Ward, it's a nice kind of benchmark to compare what we're seeing here with Shedeur. With Cam Ward, I actually liked his advanced processing better than his standard processing. And with Shedeur, I have the same grade for standard processing, but I actually have him a good bit behind where I have Cam Ward with more of those advanced processing throws, and that's specifically reflected in Shedeur's inability to throw the ball with anticipation, something I really liked about Cam Ward. I'll talk more about that, but as far as standard processing is concerned, I think he's fine there. He plays on time usually. You love his turnover-worthy play percentage per PFF down to 1.2%. He generally does take care of the football and avoids mistakes. I think overall you're seeing a encouraging young quarterback that just overall understands where to go with the ball within his first read. It's not always perfect. You do see him the biggest knock here is Shedeur really struggles to identify hook zone defenders. A lot of his interceptions come when he's assuming a throw is going to be there, and a defender working from the backside or sometimes buzzing down from a free safety alignment into a hook zone will show up, and Shedeur will throw it anyway and just not see those intermediate zone defenders. And he gets himself in trouble a good bit doing that. In fact, I would argue almost all of his turnover-worthy plays come when that happens. It's very Jimmy Garoppolo-esque in that sense. That was always a big issue with Jimmy, was he was good at playing on time. He trusted the offense. It's something we see with Tua as well. But to a fault sometimes would attack some of those intermediate throws without identifying linebackers and buzzing safeties. So that is something that really needs to improve from Shedeur. You don't want to see those types of throws. You're going to get those lurking intermediate zone defenders even more at the next level because they're just better at the next level. And then there are occasional pass-ups, occasional times where he's just a little bit slower. When he's throwing like hitch routes, for example, I want to see him speed things up. And that's kind of a precursor to the lack of anticipation that really shows up in advanced processing. But if you're talking about throwing a hitch route against off coverage and there's no underneath zone defender to lurk underneath that thing, that doesn't require a lot of anticipation. That to me is quick, easy processing that, you know, he usually waits for the receiver to kind of turn around and then the ball's out. You want to see him speed those things up. You're going to set up his wide receivers better with run after catch opportunities and make those catches easier. And then there's one other thing too that's more of just a footnote on this whole thing, is they just didn't run a ton of quick game. You know, your classic NFL concepts like stick, for example. They ran it, I saw it one time in their bowl game, and Shedeur was late on it. But to me, that's more of a, like, he just hasn't repped it a lot. They didn't ask him to run, like, NFL-style true quick game where you've got 3 quick route combinations, and you want that ball to come out quick as almost a part of the run game, if you will. It's more of a question mark than it is a strength or a weakness, but I do think he needs more reps running quick game before he's doing that efficiently at the NFL level. I think he can get there. It's not something that really showed up on tape, was like really operating NFL-style quick game concepts at a high level. But again, overall, I'm not horribly concerned about his kind of standard quicker processing. There's just areas to improve upon. This isn't like Justin Fields level panic levels in terms of can he get the ball out on time. Like, he very clearly has a firm understanding, or at least a good baseline understanding of where the ball needs to go. Now, in terms of the advanced processing, I do have some more concerns there, especially when it comes to his inability to throw the ball with anticipation. This is a big deal for me, and an area I was really underwhelmed with Shedeur. I always seem to call back to Bruce Arians' book, The Quarterback Whisperer, this time of year. Just a term and a quote that has really stuck with me when scouting quarterbacks is Bruce talks about wanting passers, not throwers, at the quarterback position. A passer is someone that can anticipate zone openings, anticipate the break of a wide receiver against man coverage, and let the ball go before the receiver comes open. A thrower is slower with things and needs to see the receiver open before he throws the ball. And with Shedeur Sanders, that was a consistent theme with me when watching him, was he almost always, to a fault, needed to see the receiver come open before he lets go of the football. We talked a little bit about that with his hitch routes, but you see it with virtually every throw on the football field, whether it's a crossing route or a deep out. Not only would he just be a little bit late on a lot of those throws and make those catches harder and reduce run after catch opportunities, but there's also a lot of throws that he would hold the ball and elect to get into scramble drill because he doesn't trust that he can let the ball out. He doesn't trust that his receiver is going to get open. And I'll be honest, he had really good receivers at Colorado. He had receivers that you should be able to trust to get open and let the ball go with anticipation. And he just frankly didn't. And I've got a couple plays that are the perfect example of this. Here, Kansas is running an inverted cover 2, a tricky coverage, but these two shell defenders are dropping back, and then he is going to buzz down into a mid-read, Colorado has a good coverage beater on. They're running a switch, release, scissors concept here with a corner and a wheel route. And as we play it here, Shedeur just sees this one a little bit late. And I'll be honest, his footwork is just not ready to pull the trigger here. So it does lend to thinking that maybe some improved footwork could help him throw with more anticipation. But either way, it needs to be improved here. As you can see, at the moment that this really becomes clear that this is going to be open, this safety clearly is firing down with eyes on the field side of the play. There's all this space, and Shedeur just takes a couple extra steps and isn't ready to fire when it needs to happen. And as you'll see, the ball is just late and in trouble's way, could have been intercepted. We got an extra hitch in there. And then you talk about the lack of high-end arm talent potentially pairing with high-end advanced processing. That's where you talk about reduced margin for error there. If he had the arm, you can compensate for being a little bit late on that throw, but he can't afford to be both. And that is just a challenge for any young quarterback, as we saw on this play. This next one's a lot more simplified, but it's a perfect example of things being just a little bit too slow than what you want to see at the next level. Kansas State is bringing the zero blitz. It's fourth down, have to have it play, but Colorado has the perfect play drawn up. It's going to be a whip route from the slot, fake inside, break back out against off coverage. You're not getting press. You are eyes on him all the way. This is a raw timing route against man coverage. And as we play it here for Shedeur, he just takes an extra hitch that isn't necessary here. And they do end up getting it, I hear you, but they do make it way tighter than it needed to be. Got it by about a half a yard. Because this is such a simplified one-on-one route, and this shows up consistently on film, that ball should be out right now. It should be out already. Instead, he's still thinking about it, buys time for the defender to get back into it. I know it seems nitpicky, but this stuff shows up consistently for him, and it just makes things harder than it needs to be. And that really is where the advanced processing comes in at a C+. I do think he can make NFL reads. If he's got a clean pocket, he will snap his head around and do full field progressions, NFL style. I like that. And, on a positive note here, he did have some good flashes in terms of recognizing some complex coverages. He had some massive touchdown passes where he recognizes it pretty quickly, knows what he's getting, and executes, hitting the middle of the field against inverted cover 2, where that's usually the weak spot against that defense. So there was some high-end stuff in terms of recognizing tough coverages and beating them. But I just have to knock him for the lack of anticipation, and that's just something that's going to be critical in how he works out at the next level. Is that something you can coach into him for a young quarterback? Maybe. Is that just something that he doesn't have the instincts to throw with anticipation and see it before it happens? Maybe not. I don't know. That's a really tough one, but it is, to me, a critical variable in how successful he'll be at reaching his upside at the next level. So overall, processing is okay. Plenty of good things out there, plenty of things that need to get better at the next level, which is not uncommon for a quarterback prospect, right? But let's move on and talk about his pocket management and some of his improvisational skills. This is another critical aspect of playing the quarterback position. How well do you manage pressure, and how well can you extend plays? And this, again, I will describe how I differentiate these two critical aspects of pocket presence. So you have pressure management and you have pocket feel. These two splits are new for me. I've added this to my scouting process this year. Instead of just overall pocket presence, I've really started to pick up on two big differences with pocket presence. There's how good you are in the pocket when you are pressured, and then there's how are you in the pocket when you aren't necessarily pressured. Some quarterbacks handle those two things very differently. So pressure management is if the rush gets in, if your guard loses quickly, or if the blitz gets in, can you recognize it and can you do something about it? Can you find out where you need to go with your legs? Can you get rid of the ball quickly? That's obviously important, but pocket feel, this is more of that preternatural feel for the pocket when you aren't necessarily pressured. Do you feel the kind of natural decomposition of the pocket? Can you navigate muddier waters to extend plays within and then with outside the pocket when necessary? this again is a preternatural trait that I do think is a non-negotiable trait for elite quarterbacks in the NFL. That sort of magical eye in the back of your head ability that guys like Joe Burrow, Patrick Mahomes, Tom Brady, Aaron Rodgers always had it. So for Shedeur, pressure management is great for him. He gets an A- in that regard. That's one of his best traits, if not his best trait. Pocket feel, on the other hand, I'm not quite there with him yet. But let's start with pressure management. Again, he's just really special there. He's got great instincts when the rush gets in, when he's getting blitzed, to really set up guys to miss sack opportunities. He's got some of that kind of Russell Wilson trait where he will kind of step up and then roll out. He maybe even got that from Russell Wilson. I don't know. But he is just really good overall at detecting when pressure gets in quickly, how to manage it, and what to do about it. He's pretty good, too, at utilizing his checkdowns. That's a part of pressure management, is understanding when you are in deep shit and you can't do anything about it and you have to utilize that checkdown. He's just got a great feel in that regard. He's got those playmaking instincts there. But then when you talk about pocket feel for Shedeur, I give him a C+. And it's not horrible. There are certainly quarterback prospects in years past where I'm like, this guy has no comfort level in the pocket. He has no idea how to manage the rush as it breaks down. This guy is constantly bailing out of clean pockets. It's not full-on panic territory with Shedeur. I do think he's got a certain level in a certain comfort level in the pocket. Again, he's not someone that's like constantly bailing out of clean pockets. He'll do it sometimes, but there's other times where he understands he's not under pressure and he's got time back there. And there are times, too, where he's really good at stepping up and navigating the rush, but not always. I think generally speaking, when Shedeur decided it was time to scramble, he was looking to get out of the pocket. And that's a big part of pocket feel is, okay, once you start to extend the play, do you have that sense of, okay, I can actually extend the play within the pocket by just stepping up or sliding left and setting up a blocker here, making this guy miss and resetting my feet. Usually when Shedeur looks to extend plays, it's, okay, there's nothing there. It's time to get out of the pocket. And that's fine. A lot of really good quarterbacks in the NFL kind of approach things that way. I think Jalen Hurts is a great example of that. Brock Purdy's a great example of that. But again, the game's elite quarterbacks have exceptional pocket feel. And another big part of that is not throwing the ball short of the sticks on big third downs. Just in general, knowing when you have room, again, inside the pocket to buy that time to push the ball downfield for higher percentage looks to convert third downs. It's not that he was always throwing the ball short of the sticks, but maybe once a game, every other week, there's just some big moments where you're just left wanting a little bit more in terms of that sense in the pocket. And then another thing that might be coachable, might not be coachable, but something he does that is frustrating, that's a bit of a ding here and contributes to the C+ grade for pocket feel, is he has a really bad tendency to drift backwards in the pocket. Yet another scenario where there are examples of him stepping up, as I mentioned earlier, and showing much better kind of technique and overall pocket presence. But he does put his tackles in compromising situations because he likes to drift back and grant those angles to edge rushers. And he's missing out on a lot of meat on the bones of plays and opportunities to just step up, settle in, trust those tackles to win that corner. And in which case he would have maybe opportunities to see some throwing windows down the field that he's leaving out there available and not executing on, because he then typically will, once he feels that pressure that he kind of created for himself, he will get outside of the pocket and start scrambling, to which he may or may not make a play. Now, one area where I was really concerned about Shedeur Sanders, and it wasn't a ton of reps, it was a small sample size, so it's hard to say, and it's hard to say if this can get better at the next level, but to me it has to get better, is he was frankly one of the worst quarterbacks I've ever watched in my life against a three-man rush. Now, this was like 7 snaps of a three-man rush that I saw throughout the 6 games that I watched and the third down dropbacks that I watched. Three-man rushes are rarer in general, and seemingly teams didn't quite pick up on how much he was struggling against three-man rushes, but he was wildly uncomfortable. More uncomfortable against a three-man rush than maybe any first-round quarterback I've ever watched. It was just bizarre. It's like everything got thrown off for him. This is where you would see him bail out of clean pockets. I watched him walk into pressure at times and just not exhibit the comfort level against a three-man rush that the game's great quarterbacks do. It's just something you would never really want to do against a Tom Brady or an Aaron Rodgers or a Joe Burrow, because they're going to be constantly bouncing around in the pocket, setting up blockers, setting up double teams, buying countless time to throw, eventually finding a hole in those 8-man coverages. Shedeur just wasn't able to recognize it and wasn't able to attack it. Walked himself into pressure in some of these situations, quickly threw the ball short of the sticks in some of these situations, and was frankly just really discouraging to me when watching those specific plays. I don't want to overreact to it. I think it's something you can get better at the next level if you just recognize it's a three-man rush and just relax and manage that pocket. But again, we'll see. It's a huge weakness he has right now heading into the pros. And this, especially if we are going to compare Shedeur to Cam Ward, is a huge difference. Cam Ward had exceptional pocket feel, that eye in the back of his head, that preternatural trait. Didn't really pick up on that as much with Shedeur. I think he's fine in the pocket, but there's a certain upside you get with other quarterbacks that I don't know that we're going to get with Shedeur in that sense. And then you get into the overall improvisational ability. Once he's kind of made the decision to get into scramble drill, how efficient and how effective is he in those situations? And he's really good. He gets a B grade here. It's going to be a big part of his game in the pros. But I will say, yet again, considering this is Deion Sanders' son, I was underwhelmed by his athleticism. There were a lot of times where he's trying to scramble towards the sideline and a bigger defensive end wins the angle on him, and he has to either throw the ball away or take a sack. He's just not that fast, which I'll break down his athletic tools last here. And then there are some throws on the run that just aren't available to him, as we talked about his arm strength. And on top of that, there were some moments where he had some questionable throws, putting the ball into harm's way, out of structure, some questionable decision-making there. And oftentimes, too, he would just say, F it, Travis is down there somewhere, which, honestly, not the worst strategy. Maybe he wouldn't be doing that in the NFL if he doesn't have a guy like Travis Hunter, so that's fair, honestly. But there were some dings there enough that this wasn't an A grade for me. But overall, very good instincts. I talked about his accuracy when he does pull the trigger. Really on any kind of throw that's within the threshold of his arm strength, he makes some unbelievable, not just accurate throws on the run, but really like instinctive throws where he sees some of those throwing windows down the field, or just in scramble drill when a guy's working back to him. He's got the touchdown against USC in 2023 that is one of his best plays ever that comes to mind there. And he's while he's not the fastest guy in the world, he is elusive. He's got good contact balance. Like, he's going to be able to extend plays at the next level. It's a huge part of his game. And then we just kind of hinted at it, but let's reveal the grades for the athletic tools and rushing ability. He's a good athlete. He's got good size. He's 6'2", 215. He's built in his lower half. He's got good contact balance. He's shifty. As you talk about his rushing creativity, he's clearly got like the football player trait. Like, he can set guys up and make guys miss. He doesn't have the most dynamic jump cut or isn't the most powerful runner or anything like that, but I do think you can use him as a designed runner, just as Colorado did. And he's a fluid athlete for sure. He's got good change of direction. He's got good acceleration. But the long speed, again, was just really kind of underwhelming the more I watched him. I honestly think he's probably, 4.7 speed if he were to run. I don't know that he will run. I know that sounds low, but I didn't see a particularly fast player, especially relative to today's QBs. It's pretty standard to have a mobile quarterback out there, and he's just not a special athlete. He's just not. So call that another area that I was a little bit underwhelmed. But that's really all there is in terms of the traits. Now, I do have full strengths and weaknesses write-ups on Shedeur, on Cam Ward. There's going to be some other notes that I didn't quite get to in this video. You can go see those on Shedeur, on Cam Ward, on every player in this draft class. If you enjoy my draft content and want to sign up at the Patreon Draft Insider on my Patreon, obviously, if you enjoy my draft content, this is the time of year to sign up for all of that. And I will be publishing my first edition of the draft board as of this video that's going to have Shedeur and Cam Ward both on there. Haven't gotten to anybody else yet, but it's obviously coming. We're going to have upwards of 400 players come draft day, full profiles on all of them. But anyway, time to kind of reveal the grade and establish my at least initial take on Shedeur Sanders. Sometimes these grades change a little bit over the course of draft season. A lot of times new information and tidbits become available throughout the process, but my final grade on Shedeur Sanders is a 6.30. What does that mean exactly? Well, that's basically in between where I had Michael Penix last year, who was my QB5, and where I had like Kenny Pickett in 2022 was my QB1 in that horrible draft class. And it's a grade that basically says top 10, I'm not there with Shedeur. You want to take him at the back end of the first or the early second round, I think you might be looking at a starting quarterback at the next level. And to me, my pro comps on him are Teddy Bridgewater on a low end, which frankly is not a bad floor for a QB. Teddy Bridgewater had a good NFL career. But the high end for me is Brock Purdy. I actually see a ton of similarities to Brock Purdy. The way he can extend plays, his overall arm strength, I think, is comparable. Purdy's a little bit of a weaker arm than Shedeur. But Purdy also has shown to be a much better anticipation thrower at the next level. So, no NFL pro comps are perfect. But in terms of being a guy that I think can push the boundaries of being somewhere between the 12th and 15th best quarterback in the NFL in a good situation with the right development, I think that's like a best case scenario with Shedeur Sanders. I just really don't see a difference maker at the quarterback position, just to be honest with what I'm seeing. I don't see the traits, and I don't think we see crazy advanced processing either, or elite pocket presence. You're just missing it factor from Shedeur Sanders, and that can come from the mental side or the physical side. I don't see that really in either regard with Shedeur. So to wrap up here, to me, it's very clear where I'm at right now, where Cam Ward is QB1 in this draft. I like Cam Ward inside the top 10 a hell of a lot more than Shedeur. We'll see how that plays out throughout the course of the draft process as more people get their hands on Shedeur film. But for me, even the thought of taking Shedeur in the top 10, it's, I understand sometimes these things happen because, sometimes you just got to take a quarterback and supply and demand and all that stuff. But I am just not sure the juice is worth the squeeze in that situation to take him over legitimate high-end first-round caliber difference-making prospects. And hell, if Mike McCarthy does become available, I had a higher grade on Mike McCarthy. I had McCarthy at a 6.40, so a decent tick higher than Shedeur, and he's had a year of development under Kevin O'Connell's wing. I don't know that he is going to be available, but we'll see how Sam Darnold plays here in the playoffs. But it's something to keep in mind if you're a team like the Browns or the Giants considering Shedeur at number 2 or number 3. Where are you better off spending those resources? And is it all that crazy to actually give up a higher pick than McCarthy went in last year's draft, even if the framework's a little bit different? So that's kind of where I'm at. I obviously hope I'm wrong. I love being wrong about quarterbacks. I mean, last year I was too low on Jaden Daniels, and I thoroughly enjoyed the year he had. So I'm all for Deion Sanders' son blowing up the NFL. I'm just being honest about what I saw on film relative to where the hype is at on him. I just can't quite get there on Shedeur. So I am curious what you guys think of Shedeur. Am I way too low? Is this where you came in on him? Am I still too high on him? I don't know. But let me know in the comments down below. I really hope you guys enjoyed today's video. I don't know that there will be other quarterbacks in this draft worth giving the full deep dive breakdown like this on, but if you really enjoy this format, let me know. I might do this on some of the top receivers or edge rushers or whoever that might be. I personally enjoy doing this format this way because it's just very raw bones, diehard scouting style, baby. So I love it. Thank you so much for watching. That's all we got, and we'll see you later. Peace out.